Welcome! You're listening to the Church Files podcast, which features fun-filled, hard-to-believe, hilarious experiences from working in the church. From antics in the parish office to absurd voicemails and funny liturgical moments. You think working for the church is dull? Think again. Humor is out there. And now, here's our host, Craig Colson.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of the Church Files podcast. This is episode 7. And here at the Church Files podcast, we just talk about funny stuff that happens in the church and liturgical ministry and on the road that people just would not believe that happens to Catholic musicians. And so today I am so privileged to have the first ever female guest on the Church Files podcast. So this is a historic moment. Would you please welcome good friend and composer, Miss Sarah Hart.
Hello, Craig. I'm so happy to be with you. You are just one of my favorite people in the world.
Oh, I will give you $20 later. Thank you so much.
Just send it to me. I'll give you my address. Yes. Good. Truly, though, it's just, I always have so much fun when I'm with you, and you just always have such a great attitude. And so I'm really blessed to be here today with you.
Well, ditto. I'm so glad to be with you. And, we were just with each other not too long ago. You came to our parish in McHenry, Illinois. So that was awesome to have you.
It was so awesome. Yeah. What a great event. You have an amazing parish, truly. Yeah.
It's a great place.
Yeah.
So,
and we had a blast,
you have,
except
if
for...
people that... Yeah, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just saying, it was a blast, except for, remember that poor Susie hit a deer in the middle of it, and I felt so bad.
I was just saying before we started that Sarah
God.
had her coffee, and I said, my good friend Susie gave me this awesome mug that I have. And I said, remember Susie? She's the one who hit the deer. And literally... We're in the middle. I'm playing, percussion with you or something. And and I saw my phone in the middle of the parish mission, and there's people, and Sarah's, doing her thing and telling these great stories and singing great songs. And all of a sudden I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, what? And Susie, it's like text message. And I'm on stage and I'm I couldn't go. And she was trying to call the whole staff because she hit a deer. Oh dear.
And didn't she have something like the cookies? I don't know. She had something. She was supposed
She had all the
to
food.
Too. Yes. Poor thing.
She went to go pick up the food that we were going to eat after that night of the mission. And it's funny because I've known Susie for and she won't mind me saying this, but maybe she will. Yeah. But I've known Susie for 30 years. She worked at the very first parish that I ever got a job at. And I told her, she's fine, everything's good. But I said, it's the first first time I've ever seen you with a hair out of place. Because she had one hair that was she just looked like.
Poor thing. Oh, I felt so bad for her. It was just the worst. In the middle of it. She's so sweet.
She is the sweetest. And, Susie's fine, but the Prius she was driving is not.
Oh, dear. Did they total it?
Yeah, I think they totaled
it. Yeah.
So, yeah. Ugh. So, you can't make this stuff up.
You cannot make this stuff up. I mean, it's sometimes you feel like when you're in the middle of those events, just something else gets thrown in or something blows up or something happens and you're just yeah, sure, why not? Of course that would happen.
Of course, yeah.
Why not? Why wouldn't it?
Yeah. And I'm sure everybody knows Sarah, but for people that don't know Sarah is an awesome musician, songwriter, singer, guitar player, piano player, whistler, all these things that you do, and lives in Nashville, right? You live in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah. Right.
Nashville.
And Sarah does her ministry. I mean, goes all over the place and does these missions and concerts and women's retreats and all kinds of different conventions and stuff all over the world. So I'm sure you have a lot of good stories of things that have happened.
Ooh, I have so many stories, but yes, it's amazing because it is such a weird life. I feel so often at a disadvantage because, I don't get to go to my own church very often, and I'm usually on the road on weekends, and I'm traveling doing ministry, so sometimes that puts me at a disadvantage, but it sure does provide for a lot of life experience. I mean, that is truth right there. And, at the end of the day, God's people are beautiful, and we have this saying in the South, bless their hearts. I mean, people are out there and trying and just, trying to love God and trying to do the right thing and trying to serve. And I get to see it from every perspective, and it's a beautiful thing, and sometimes it's a pretty funny thing too, and a hilarious thing. But it's good. It's all good, Like I love it. It's exhausting, but I love it.
And you had, I could always edit this out, but you had a crazy experience that you told me about at a hotel recently.
Oh my gosh, the one that happened recently.
Yeah.
Dude, do you know how many hotel stories I have at this point in my life? Like that list could go on forever. Well, okay, I'll tell you my two favorites. Would you like to
we want to hear
my two
this
favorites?
stuff.
Okay, so
Yeah,
first
I
one
wanna
just
hear it.
happened like last year. I was doing a 5-day run. So I had been in like somewhere in Wisconsin before I came to you, right? Like I had been, I think I had done 4 days in Wisconsin, then I was making my way down to your neck of the woods. And anyway, it was super late. I had done a concert, and the next day I had to be at a mass in the morning at 8:00, and I had a late night concert the night before. So I was like, well, I'll just drive halfway, stay halfway, and then that way I won't have to drive 4 hours in the morning. I'll only have to drive 2 hours in the morning, right? And I can get a few hours of sleep. This is how it is on the road. Like you're lucky if you just get a few hours of sleep every night. So, and I'm by myself, of course. So I usually travel by myself. Right. So I get to the hotel. It's in somewhere in the middle of Wisconsin. I can't even remember where. But anyway, so I get to the hotel. It's like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm just tired. And I walk in the hotel, and it looks weird and it smells weird. And the girl at the front is like, hey, so just so you know, we just had a huge water main burst, but everything's okay. We have everything up and running. And like, you might go to your room and see like all the drywall is out in the hall and like wallpaper's peeled off. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. It all, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, okay. And at this point, I'm like, it's 1:30. I'm so tired. I don't care. Just like, give me a bed. I don't care. So I'm got up the elevator and I'm walking down, and I do see like all the drywall is gone and there's wallpaper peeled off, and you could tell there were fans running and all this stuff. So I start to open my door, and I have a key card, and I have one hand on my suitcase. I've got my backpack on, one hand on my suitcase, and I did the little thing on the door. I open it, and as I open it, I am met with an electrical shock that knocks me on my butt. And the light bulb, I barely open the door, and I see the electricity shoot through the wall and hit my hand, and the light bulb right above my head explodes all over me.
Oh
and
my gosh.
I'm just like, oh my God. Like, and now I'm really awake. Now I'm wide awake. So
Yeah.
So I think I just got like a serious, like real electrical shock, but I didn't die. And I was telling my husband about it later. He said, Sarah, the only reason you didn't die is because you had your hand on your suitcase, and your suitcase is grounded because it's got the rubber wheels and the plastic handle. He said you were not, or you weren't grounded to something, like you were holding on to plastic, and that's what saved your life. So I go down to the thing, and I tell the girl this happens. I'm like, okay. And then we're the only two people awake. And I said, look, I just opened my room, and like, it, blah, 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 blah. This exploded. And I've got light bulb in my hair. And she didn't ask me if I was okay. She didn't, nothing. She just looked at me. She goes, do you want another room? And I'm like, yes. And also... I'm not going to go to another hotel. I'm so damn tired. I just need to get somewhere to sleep. So of course she gives me another room, but she wasn't even fazed. And then like, as she's handing me the key, she said, by the way, are you okay? I'm like, not really. I have light bulbs in my hair. I'm going to have to go take a shower. And I almost got electrocuted to death, but thanks for asking. And the hardest part about that is, and I can tell this story. I'm a Marriott girl. Mm-hmm. And I called Marriott and got very little response. It was like, oh, we'll put 5,000 miles on your card. I'm like,
really?
No, you should be shutting this hotel down. This hotel should not be open right now, because I think the water affected their electrical system, Yeah. So it was insane. And but that is the thing about that is like, it shows you how scary it can be to travel alone. Because if something had happened, if I had gotten electrocuted and died, which was possible, probably nobody would have found me until they came out of their creepy room and saw me lying in the hallway, in the morning. So,
yeah. Well, we're glad you're okay. My gosh.
Me too. Okay, I'm going to tell you this one other one. Can I tell you one other hotel story?
Yeah,
This is one of my favorites. And I think my friend who, when I was with them, they were hosting the event and this happened and they laugh at me still about this. But I was in the middle of nowhere, North Dakota. And have you ever been to North Dakota?
Never.
Well, so when you're in North Dakota, like there's one city and then everything else is just stars and darkness, but it's crazy. But I was up there and flew in, and then like the event is 2.5 hours away from the airport, and so I didn't get to the hotel till really late, like 11 or 12, and finally get to my room and I'm exhausted, and it's a horrible, like it's a motel. You know the difference between like a hotel and a motel. Yeah. Motels are where murders happen. The M is for murder. So anyway, doors on the outside, like it's not inside elevator. It's anybody can walk up and break into your hotel room.
M is for murder.
M is for murder. So I'm in there and I'm lying in bed and I'm so tired, but I'm like, I'll turn the TV on for 5 minutes. Maybe it'll help me sleep, because loneliness is another real road thing. And so the TV's on and I'm watching it. Have you ever seen the movie Creep Show, the original one with John Lithgow? And from the 80s. Okay,
Yep.
So I look at the TV and there's a bug crawling across the TV, and it's like a roachy looking bug, and I'm like, oh god, there's like a bug on the TV. So I'm just like, I gotta get rid of it. I can't sleep if it's here. So I reach over, turn on the light, and I look, and I'm not joking, Craig. On the ceiling above me, there were probably 500 of them walking. Crawling. No, walking and crawling, like over my bed, over where the bed is, over where I sleep, over where my mouth is open when I sleep. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, literally, there were probably 500 of them. So I called the lady who's hosting the event. I'm like, can you come here? Because I'm freaking out just a little bit. I think I need another room. And she came in and she goes like, what's the matter? There are no other rooms. And I'm like, what do you mean there are no other rooms? I'm like, look at my room. And she literally comes in and she goes, those are just box elder bugs. They're fine. They're not going to hurt you. And I'm like, oh, what? Like, and I didn't want to be ingracious about it, but she just was like, no big deal. So I sat up, and there was another motel thing. There was a rocking chair in the motel. So I sat up all night long in the rocking chair with all of the lights on, like Mrs. Bates with all the lights on. Yeah. And I did not sleep. And I had to do a whole entire youth event all day the next day. And I was exhausted.
And as you're rocking, you're just crunching bugs like
seriously, let me tell you. Well, and I started like trying to collect them and like put them outside, because I'm a nature lover, so I didn't want to kill them all. I just was like, I'll put them outside. And I swear to God, every time I opened the door to put 5 out, 10 more came in. And then I'm like, all right, forget this.
Run away, little bugs, run away.
But I think that for itinerant ministers, I hope that sometimes, I don't think anybody does, but when people see you in concert, like they don't see all the other things that happen. Yeah. You're just there on stage in front of them for an hour and a half. They don't know all the stuff that's going on and all the crap that you have to go through to get there and be there, and like the ancillary things that mess with your mojo. And so
this is why we have the Church Files podcast, so people can find out some of the insight of this stuff and see all the crazy, that like Sarah was either electrocuted, almost electrocuted, and now they know to hold on to your suitcase with the rubber wheels while you open the door, and they know to, if they're in North Dakota, watch out. What kind of bugs are they again?
Box elder bugs is what they're called. They're they're kind of black and red, but they're an invasive species, and man, did they invade, because they were like everywhere. Oh, and they
reminds me of, what was the Will Smith movie with the Men in Black? Remember the guy with all the bugs?
It was kind of like that. Like the Creep Show, where they're coming out of the drain and they're coming out of the... it was like Creep Show, man. It was awful. And that was many years ago. Yeah.
So I forgot about this until you mentioned that last story. But, of course, Chris Mulia, right?
Yeah.
So Chris and I met in a house in Tempe, Arizona, that a guy that I knew, who was like one of my mentors, lived in. And Chris knew this other guy, and he just moved to to Phoenix from Sierra Vista, Arizona. So he was living on the couch in this house, and he was maybe like 19, 20. And he was maybe 21 and I was like 20. He's like a year older than me. He's older. But anyway, we met in this house that these guys were living in, these Catholic guys. And after like a month, we wouldn't have any place to live. It was like, just stay here for a month and take somebody's rent or whatever. So he's like, one day he goes, hey, you want to get an apartment? And we're young and we don't really have any money. And I'm like, yeah. And I had just graduated high school. Actually, I had just graduated high school. I was like 18.
Wow.
So he was probably 19 actually. And so we got this apartment down by Arizona State University, and we didn't really realize that at the time. It's kind of a sketchy area. Okay?
It's anytime you're by a state university, like it's just a little sketch. Yeah.
It's a little sketch, but it's what we could afford, and we moved into this place. And one night that's a whole nother story, and it's not really funny, but I got maced in the parking lot. Like I've been maced before. Like this guy goes, hey, what's up? And I go, what's up? And I had actually gone to my old parish to do like a prayer group music, and I'm walking with my guitar, and I go, yeah, what's up? And I just kind of said hi to the guy, and all of a sudden, next thing I knew, he's like right behind me, and he maced me in the eyes just for no reason. Just totally out of the blue.
Did he take your guitar or try to take your guitar?
He didn't take no, I ran with the guitar like blinded. I was like kind of knew where I was going. So I'm running into the apartment, and Chris is on the phone with like his girlfriend, and like he didn't realize what had happened. And I'm like, dude, I just got maced, and I'm like splashing water in my eyes. So that happened first, but then maybe a couple months later, I remember we had this major cockroach, and this wasn't your bugs. This was like the North Dakota bugs. This was like cockroaches.
Yeah, man. And when you see one of those, there's like 5,000 more living around somewhere. Ugh.
And there was like brown carpet, like really dark, that kind of 80s dark brown carpet.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, the floor's moving, and they were just coming out of everywhere. And we had bought like Raid and all this stuff, and we're like, forget it. And we went and met with the manager, and I just remember her saying, you cannot violate your lease agreement. You cannot violate your lease agreement. I'm like, if you don't get these bugs out of our apartment,
you're violating. Yes.
Exactly.
Renters' rights.
Yeah. So they would not do anything, kind of like what you were sharing. And so we moved out in the middle of the night. And we literally packed our stuff. We went and stayed with some friends, and we found an apartment the next day. But the funniest thing about this was that we found this nicer apartment complex, a little more expensive, but we figured out how we could make it work. Yeah. And I was in college, and so Chris was going to pick out the actual unit that we were going to live in, right?
Yeah.
So this apartment had free utilities, and which is great, and it was in Arizona, right? So he goes, yeah, I got us this great apartment. It's on the 3rd floor. It's got a great like view of the grass and stuff outside. We can leave the windows open and, have the air conditioning running. We didn't think about global warming or energy or any, green, anything,
yes,
at that time, but saving the environment, nothing. Yeah. So we just, we looked at it, and I go, Chris, you signed for this apartment already? And he goes, yeah, it's all done. We got that unit, and we're moving in, 2 days or whatever. And I go, you realize that we're in a Christian rock band together, and you have this giant rack that's like, there's no elevator. You have all this equipment, all these guitar amps. I had my drums, this huge bag of hardware and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And we're going back and forth like to rehearsal studios. Like, oh, I didn't think of that.
Oh my gosh. So, did they end up giving you a 1st floor apartment?
No, we had the 3rd floor, but we could keep the windows open with the air conditioning on. So it was living.
Oh my God. Oh man, those college days, whew, those were hard days.
Fun.
My daughter's moving into her first off-campus apartment next year, and I'm just dreading it. I'm like, yeah. She's like, it's really nice. I'm like, no, it's really not.
It's really not. It's really not. Yeah.
So true.
Good times.
Yeah. Hotels, man. Hotels, and I think the other thing that I think a lot about is food. Food, because people do not. So for me, like, folks don't always understand like how hard it is to get a good meal when you are traveling.
Yeah.
And like how scarce food is. And it's just one of those things I've had to add into my contract, because like for the first 3 years that I did this, like, people didn't feed me. Like, I never ate. I think that it's like people forget, oh yeah, you're a human being and we probably ought to find you some food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like food. Have you ever had that experience? Like when you're traveling and you're like, I haven't eaten in like 8 hours. Is anybody gonna
Yeah.
help me with a meal? Like, you know what I'm saying?
There's
Yeah.
been some really great places that have gone over and above and really taken great
Yes.
care.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And some that you're like, hello.
Yeah, I know. Most are great. And it's one of those things that I've put in my contract now. Like, please feed the bear. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to kind of put it in your contract. But
Yeah.
definitely I've had some moments. Yeah.
And do you know, like, it's funny because I'm sure you know this story, but for the viewers that might not know, it's Van Halen, I think it was, that used to put, do you know about the M&Ms that they put in their contract?
Yeah,
So
well, it's smart.
It's
Because
very
then
smart.
you know that they read it.
Yes. So if
it's
you don't know, when Van Halen walks into or when they used to walk into like the green room or whatever, they used to ask for green M&Ms, like a bowl of green M&Ms should be in the green room. And people are like, that's crazy. Why do they need green M&Ms or whatever? But they would do that. So when they walked in, that they would know if the green M&Ms were there, like you said, they read the contract. But if they weren't there, they're like, uh-oh, everything's going to be wrong.
Everything's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
I know. Speaking of that, like I remember this one time I went to an event, and this has been so long ago that I couldn't even tell you where it was. Like, I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But when we do what we do, you do have to have like a sound writer that says, you're spending money to bring in an artist, so please have this in place. Like, because if the artist doesn't sound good, it's a waste of your money and it's a waste of your time.
Yep.
So please just have some sound, have this available. So I've got this writer, and it's not extensive because it's just me. But literally this one time I showed up at this event and I was probably 22 or 23 years old. I just started out, and I show up and like, I'm, got my guitar and my happy face. That's about all I got. And the guy at the event was like, here's your sound. And he just hands me this big giant Tupperware box. What? Like, no sound person, nobody to help set it up. No, just a box full
of like cables,
a couple of microphones, like a random speaker, one pair of headphones. I mean, it's just like, it was kind of like whatever they had lying around. They just threw in the Tupperware box and handed it to me. So I looked in it and I took everything out, and I was like, there wasn't even a direct box. Like there was nothing, so I was just like, okay. So I talked to the guy and I said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do this event unplugged. And I did an unplugged youth event for 500 people.
Wow.
Because I had no sound.
Yeah, nothing.
No.
We went to this one diocese, and this was like a diocesan conference. And the first night we went, one of my buddies came with me, and they had like a buddy pass. They said, if you want to bring somebody with you. And I had asked Kristen, and she's like, nah, I don't really feel like going or whatever. So one of my buddies came with me. So we get to the church on Friday night where this event's going to happen. It's this beautiful church. Yeah. And they have a beautiful Steinway grand piano and direct boxes, which if you don't know what direct box is, that's what you plug your guitar into.
You need those.
They had these great JBL speakers, and it was a nice sound system. They had a mixer. So we got set up like Friday night, and then the conference was starting Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. So we go to dinner and stuff after. We get in bright and early Saturday morning, and we walk in, and I saw the stuff that we had set up, but then I saw these giant like PA speakers that were there. Like on the kind of the side behind where we'd set up, and a Kurzweil, a keyboard, right? So like a keyboard that was there. And I said to my buddy, I go, was that there last night? He goes, I don't remember that being there. And I'm like, well, maybe somebody's going to like, the Kurzweil I remember had like a nice organ, like a church organ.
Yeah,
I go, maybe somebody's going to like play
support
it, and they need these giant speakers because it's going to be like this giant organ. It's kind of what I thought. So we do the first event, which was a mass, and everything was great. And we played, and afterwards, this really old priest with like long hair, he kind of shuffles up and he goes, how come he didn't use the speakers? How come he didn't use the speakers and the keyboard? And I go, oh, Father, did you get that? Was that for us? And he's like, it's in your rider. It's in your rider.
Bless his heart.
And my heart just sank because he's sitting there probably the whole mass going, why isn't he using the equipment that I got?
And he did that for you. Like he went to all that trouble to do that. Oh.
Yeah. And so I said, I hope you didn't spend a lot of money on this because, you have everything here, like the piano and the sound system that's here was fine. And he goes, oh, no, my brother. And this was awesome. He goes, my brother and I own a music store. And I
no
go,
way.
Really? And I'm like, that's like the coolest thing, like for a priest to own a music store. And he goes, yeah, get this. He goes, I used to be a roadie for the Grateful Dead.
What?
Yeah. So, Sarah, we hung out with this guy
That I
a lot.
believe.
Every meal, we would like, there's Father so-and-so. Let's go sit with him or whatever. And then we go to the rectory one night for dinner, and we had like Domino's pizza or whatever. And he's like walking around serving us Domino's pizza.
So sweet.
I remember he had a soundboard that used to be owned by Prince.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we heard the greatest stories from this guy. I was like, who knew that an ex-roadie?
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
it's an amazing thing. That is one thing about being itinerant. Like there are some amazing priests and amazing sisters who have done just amazing everybody who've done some amazing things, and you really get to meet people. That is so awesome. Cool though. Although I didn't expect you to say he was a deadhead. That's pretty interesting.
Isn't that wild?
That is interesting.
People will know this one. I mean, he would say it, but I worked for another priest that was actually a deadhead.
Really?
Yes, that followed the Grateful Dead and has probably been to more Grateful Dead concerts than anybody. Yeah.
So cool. Well, I'm not a huge Grateful Dead fan, but the people that I know who are, I mean, they say it's like a spiritual experience. Like they all talk about how you have to know the lyrics, you have to know the people, you have to feel whatever it is that's there in the air. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're all
I know what's probably in the air. Yeah, but it's really cool.
Yeah. It's wild stuff.
It is wild stuff.
I was thinking back when you talked about electrocution, because I think it was episode 2, Luke Rosen. He got electrocuted too. So if you ever see Luke.
Oh my gosh, I'll talk to him about it. It's insane. Yeah. I was electrocuted a couple other times too, but not in church, not church related. I think that's how I'm going to go. Like it always happens to me. I don't know why. It's very, very frightening. I have a great story to tell you that isn't Catholic Church related.
Yeah.
But it is like the folly of man related. And I would so love to share it with you. So, I grew up Catholic. And when I first started doing this, I was touring with like some Christian groups. So the first tour that I ever went on was with this group called Phillips, Craig and Dean. Do you remember that?
Oh, really? Yeah, of course.
So I toured with Phillips, Craig and Dean for a couple of months. And Kathy Tricoli was on that tour as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we did...
KT.
KT. So we did primarily like Baptist churches and, non-denoms and Baptist churches were probably the two biggest ones because the guys in PCD, they were all preachers and Baptist preachers, so like that's where a lot of our work was, which was funny for me. And, as a Catholic on tour with these guys, it was just weird. It was so weird. But anyway... So the whole tour, they kept teasing me about like, Sarah, we're going to make sure you're not Catholic by the end of this tour. Like, girl, we are going to, get you saved, all this kind, that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever you guys. So one night, we were at this huge Baptist church. I can't remember where it was, but it was like 10 minutes to showtime. And I was in my dressing room, and the dressing rooms were like they were above and behind the altar. I don't know how to explain that, but like it was, they were all above and behind the altar. So I was just, I'm so young and I'm so nervous. And I just decided I'm going to go walk out on the balcony and see how many people are out there. Cause right outside my dressing room was this balcony. And so I went out and walked out and I looked down just like to see how many people, and I couldn't see. So I kept walking, and all of a sudden, before I knew it, I'm waist deep in water. And I had walked into the baptismal font. And I didn't know that that's where their baptistry was. Because it was like, so it's Baptist church, like Baptist is it's a big part of it. But they had built theirs up above and behind the altar so that when people got baptized, they went up this set of stairs and dunked into the bathroom. So I didn't know. I mean, I'm a Catholic. We don't leave these things lying around on the floor. I didn't expect it to be there. So like, I'm just all of a sudden, and it was tarped, and it was so dark up there that I couldn't see. So I just like, all of a sudden I'm waist deep. So I'm panicking because I'm on stage in 10 minutes in front of 2,000 people, right? So I'm in the dressing room.
Gosh.
And Kathy and like PCD we're all kind of linked together. So I run over, I slammed their doors, and I locked as best I can. I just say, don't come in here. Don't come in here. And so 10 minutes before, I am stripped down and I'm ironing my underwear and my pants just to try and get them to dry. But I went out that night and I played just soaking wet from the waist down. Like that is how I played my 20-minute set. It was horrible.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I told the boys after that, I was like, hey, guess what happened? I fell in the baptistry. And they're like, praise Jesus, you're baptized.
You got baptized.
You're a Baptist. Oh, it was so funny.
You're born again.
So funny.
The episode that we had a couple episodes ago with Ike and Dolo, we shared about he ripped his pants at the Lake Team Convention. And apparently he's done that like multiple times, what I didn't know. So if you haven't seen that episode, go back. That's a good one. And then Booth shared actually that his first concert ever, he walked out on stage, and then after he got done, like when he was really young, he got done and he looked down and his fly was open. And then he said he put his guitar back on to make sure like it
just
was
to cover that.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I'm good. And then it's really weird how many times this happens. So like people are going to start watching. Like, is that person soaking wet? Are their pants?
But this is what I'm always saying. Like you just when you see someone on stage, you never know like what actually has happened around it, what they've gone through to get there. Airplanes. Oh my Lord, I have 1,000 airplane stories. Airplanes, and most of my airplane stories revolve around feet. Like people who just bring out their feet on an airplane. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, like John Candy on Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Just like that. Like it's so
gosh.
gross.
My dogs are barking today. Oh.
I mean, one time I had somebody behind me. They had their bare feet and they put them up on the side of and it was like beside my face.
On the armrest?
I took a picture of it. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many people I've had fall asleep on me, just like
next to you. Yeah.
Yes. Fall asleep. I was on a plane, where they took the guy next to me off the plane because he was drunk. He was so drunk. And I felt so bad. He was super nice. Like he was a really nice guy, but he was horribly drunk.
Yeah.
And he was just doing all the crazy things and talking to me all the crazy ways. And all of a sudden 3 people come on and it was the red eye from LA. So it was 12:30 at night. So he wasn't getting a flight until the next morning.
Yeah.
And they came and they pulled him off. And I said to the stewardess, I'm like, I feel so bad because he was so nice. And she said, yeah, but do you want him throwing up all over you at 30,000 feet? And I was like, great point. Nope.
Thanks. Yeah.
Nope. Yeah.
Wow.
But plane etiquette cracks me up. I follow this thing on Instagram called, passenger shaming. Have you seen it?
No.
You need to follow passenger shaming. It's all pictures that people take on airplanes and of crazy things that people do traveling.
Yeah.
It's pretty hilarious.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
And some of it's really sweet. Like some of it's people who like hold somebody's baby the whole flight so they can take a nap, and
Right.
but a lot of times it's just outright shaming. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I saw somebody recently, like there's on Twitter, like there's nothing worse than a person who puts their seat back on a flight that's less than like 2 hours or something like that. Is there like etiquette? Like you fly all the time. Like what do you think the etiquette is?
Well, here's what I do. Like most people don't, but I do. I always look behind me, and I often will ask, is it okay if I put my seat back? And the reason I do it is because I can't tell you how many times I've had my laptop up because I work a lot on the plane.
Yeah.
And then the guy in front of me is just like, and all of a sudden my laptop is crammed in between the tray table. And I'm like having to go, dude, push up your seat. But and I had one guy one time, his seat was broken. He didn't know, but he put his seat back and all of a sudden he's in my lap. I mean, like completely in my lap. And
Oh my gosh.
the stewardesses gave me points for that one because he hit me so hard. Like he hit my legs and he felt horrible, but he didn't know his seat was broken. So I just always kind of ask. I think that's the etiquette. But no, I mean, they're there so that you can lie back if you need to. And Lord knows people who travel are tired. So let somebody sleep and lay back. But I do usually err on the side of laying back. I got to tell you, can I tell you one more plane story?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this just happened to me. It was so great. And it is related to church because I was on my way, of course, to an event in LA. I was on my way to, not Congress, but one a couple months before that. And I am crammed into this window seat. And I had to go to the bathroom because it's a 12-hour flight, however long it takes to get to LA. It's like 4 hours,
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom. So I everybody around me was asleep, everyone. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta just like tiptoe. So I tiptoed out and I crawled over people. Like I'm literally crawling over people like a graceful dancer. I didn't wake anybody up. I went to the bathroom. I came back, did the same thing like a graceful dancer. I just tiptoed back, didn't wake anybody up. But as I'm sitting down in the seat, I didn't know there was a bulkhead right above me, and I smacked the bulkhead as hard as I could. Like I saw stars, face
What's
first.
What's a bulkhead?
It's like where the luggage is above you.
Oh, yeah.
And
like
where I was sitting,
thing?
there was like a side bulkhead that I didn't know was there. And I just smacked face first, and to be honest, I did the most human thing, which is I cursed a lot. And I just, it just came flying out of my mouth because I was in so much pain. I was, son of a mother, and I just, everything, I just let it go. And then everybody was awake, And I sat down, and the attendant came over, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I heard that." And I'm like, "Oh my God, it hurts so bad." And the lady next to me, I had not talked to her the entire flight. We'd been flying together 2 hours. She didn't say word one to me. I said good morning to her, and she didn't say anything.
Right.
So I'm sitting, and I'm just like going, "Damn it, son of a," I'm just like, still quietly cursing to myself. Yes, son of a motherless goat. And I'm just calming down, trying to, because it hurts. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to calm down. So I finally stopped cursing and collected myself. And the woman next to me, she turns to me when I was done and she goes, "So," she said, "I notice you're wearing a miraculous medal around your neck." Just like that, like so judgmental.
Get out.
I was like, yeah. And she goes, "Are you Catholic? Do you love Mary?" I'm like, yes. And she goes, "Okay." I was like, what? I said mother. Did you not hear me? Like,
yeah. Wow. And I've written about 3/4 of the songs that you sang.
I know. It was terrible. It was terrible. I was so, and I was kind of like, what? Well, what would you do? Wouldn't you curse if you literally busted your face open too? Like you would curse too. God. It was just very funny.
That's unbelievable. Are you wearing a miraculous medal?
I know. A miraculous medal. Oh, here we go.
Oh my gosh.
I felt terrible. I felt awful about it. But in that moment, when those things happen, sometimes that's the first place you go. And, Jesus understands.
Yeah,
it's the human response.
I'm still trying to picture how the heck you got out of a window seat and crawled over two people.
Let me explain it.
Didn't wake them up.
Let me explain it. So there were 3 seats in my row, 2 seats in the row in front of me, and then the bathroom right in front of that. So right in front of me, there was no seat. But because it was so crowded beside me and there was more room in front of me, I crawled in front and then crawled over the 2 people in the seats in front of me because there was a little more space. And so, adventures in planing.
I'm 6'3" and 200, and I can't even, like, I'm in a window seat. No. That's why I would sit on the aisle. Like I can't even like move. I can't even get into my backpack.
Oh no!
Like if it's under the seat, it's like
I can't bend
down.
I laugh so hard because Delta, and all the airlines have this like comfort plus section or extra comfort, and I'm like, this is not, it's not extra comfort. You made it like a half an inch bigger than everything else back there. Yeah. Planes are so terrible.
And they want to charge you like $42 to upgrade to
I know.
Comfort Plus.
I know. I never do it. Sometimes because I travel so much, I get the bump up to first. Yeah. And that's nice, but you would be surprised at how bad the manners are in first class.
Oh, really?
Like the manners are worse in first class than they are in comfort plus. Like I'd rather sit in like the economy comfort section than up there because people are really rude.
Have you ever seen the Seinfeld? I think it was part of his comedy.
yeah.
And he's like, what are they doing with that little curtain that they put up? It's like, you're right there. What is that curtain preventing people from doing?
I know.
Those people back there.
Those
behind
people.
the curtain.
Those people. I know. I got a little not into it too much with someone because I was sitting like right behind the curtain, the one row behind the curtain. And there was a food cart behind me and I had to go to the bathroom. So I just like shoved the curtain aside, walked up in first class, went to the bathroom, came out. And the attendant said, this is only for our first class passengers. And he was like, he must have been 15. And I looked at him and I said, honey, listen, I'm 55 years old and I am a platinum flyer and I've been flying your airline since before you were born. So if I need to come up and go to the restroom, I'm going to come up and go to the restroom. Okay. And, and I usually don't get like that, but I'm just like, why would you tell a woman not to go to the restroom?
Yeah.
What? Like, who cares? I guarantee nobody. Right. There's a curtain.
It's not like you came and stole cookies.
Nobody in first class
or warm
cares.
towels. Yeah.
No, right.
Champagne.
Exactly. Or a drink. Or came up and got the bottle of wine. To, right. I mean,
give me that. Yeah.
It's so silly. It's so silly. Those classes that we like to put ourselves into as humans, it's weird that it's even gone to the airplane. You know what I mean?
We should have it. Now I'm thinking we should get Jaime Cortez on here and do a whole airplane episode because.
Oh my gosh, poor Jaime. He has so many stories about delays. I'm like, dude, what airline are you flying?
Yeah.
Where are you flying from? Like every time I turn around, I don't know if it's just where he is or the airlines that are available where he is, but.
Yeah, I think
poor guy.
He's cursed. I think he's cursed with airplanes. Yeah.
He is cursed with airplanes, and he is the sweetest, most dearest, loveliest man.
Is.
And like, poor Jaime.
But if you're going to like when we both lived in Arizona, if you're going to a conference and Jaime's going, I'm like, when are you flying out? Okay, I'm getting on another plane.
You're
Sorry,
right,
buddy.
Exactly. I'm not going to be on your flight.
Yeah, one time I was on a flight with Jaime. We went to that composers forum that we do in January, and I think it was me and Paul Hillebrand and Jaime were all on the same flight, and Mark Mellis, and I was like, "Oh, this isn't going to be good." But actually, we got there on time and everything.
On time. See, I always think the opposite. When I was flying to Congress, Tony Alonso was on my flight, and I saw him, and I was like, "Yay!" And then I went, "Oh, there's no way God's letting this flight go down. Like Tony and I are on this flight."
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was on a scary flight once and there was a bishop on it. I was like, all right, we're good.
Oh, yeah, we're good. The bishop's here. Bishop's here. We're fine.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. You have to trust. Flying's hard because, it's the one time in all that you do that you're really out of control. And you're just like, okay, well.
It's true. But it's safer than driving, right?
Safer than driving, although people don't understand that for whatever reason. But yeah. No. Man, you could do a whole podcast on like airplane etiquette and airport etiquette, and I would be your girl. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I got some stories there.
That's funny.
But we haven't talked about church much.
No, but that's okay. It's all funny. We've laughed a lot, so that's good. It's all the inside stuff that it's funny because the first episode John and Gotti was on, he goes, this isn't stuff we usually share with people.
I know, that's right. Well, that's kind of why I'm like, I can talk about airplanes and hotels, but there's some things I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We keep it anonymous and that kind of thing. So.
Yes. But I can tell you some things I've learned for sure. Mm-hmm. And that is like, first of all, and I really mean this, like I'm grateful every day because I love what I do and I love meeting people and I love traveling all over the place. And the funny stories to me only make it more memorable. Mm-hmm. And the crazy things that happen only like seal the sweetness of those times in my heart more. And so I've really learned that just God's people are a wild, wacky, restless, beautiful bunch. And it's just so fun to see how that changes from place to place and, in all the places we go. And I think the second biggest thing is that I've learned is I will never be able to stay in a rectory ever again. That's the other thing.
Probably not a good idea.
Nope.
Yeah,
not a good
yeah,
idea.
It's probably not a good idea, even if it's a separate cell somewhere.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
But I so love and appreciate like what people do for the church and the ways people work, and how hidden their work is and how necessary and beautiful. Like if you think about all the people on your staff and all the hidden work they do for the church, and just how incredibly beautiful that is, and all of the ridiculousness that comes along with it too. Like, what a gift, right? Just what a gift.
Well, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that's kind of part of the reason I started doing this, just because for years, we go to these conferences and we all sit down and we'll have dinner, we'll have some drinks or whatever. And people start sharing stories, and it's like one thing after another. And, it's like you just couldn't, like when you came and told me about getting electrocuted, I was like, what? Because it was like a day before you came to our parish. And I was like, what? Like, it was just, like you can't make this stuff up. How was Sarah Hart in a hotel that was flooded, that had electrical wires floating?
I know.
It's just wild, but funny, funny stuff. And,
there's humor in what we do. And I think that makes it so beautiful. My grandma, Rosie, she was very Irish, and she could make anything funny. I mean, if there was a disaster happening, I would always joke that somebody could come in and have just accidentally lost an arm, and she would find a way to laugh about it immediately, because that's just who she was. So if we can't approach like our ministries and what we do, knowing that there's going to be a lot of insanity and humor around it.
Yeah.
I mean, because there is all there is. It's just one funny thing, one humorous thing, one ridiculous thing after another.
Yep.
And that's what makes it so beautiful. I mean,
every time you deal with people, there's going to be something that doesn't go right, or something funny that happens. Or
absolutely. I wish that we had more stories about the disciples. I lovingly refer to them as the 12 Stooges, because I think that there was a lot of ridiculousness that went on there. There had to be, I mean, 13 boys out tooling around the country. I mean, there was nonsense. And so,
wow, that would be awesome if we
I know
get some of those stories. That would be really cool.
So we have ours too.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, thanks so much for coming on and sharing some funny stuff that's happened to you mostly on the road in different places. And if people want to find your music, you're everywhere, right? They can go to any digital music site, type in Sarah Hart. You've got tons and tons of songs. I always tell people when you open up a hymnal like a OCP, Breaking Bread. In fact, I just went to a church the other day and I stopped in and had Breaking Bread, and I was just, you look in because you see, these are my friends that write these songs. Aww. But like, you'll see Sarah Hart, and, it'll be like, somebody will have like one or two songs, and that's like a huge deal. And then you'll see Sarah Hart and you're like 17 songs. It's like, my gosh.
Well, I'm very old and I'm very grateful, and I've been doing it a long time. And I have one of those brains that if songs just come for whatever reason. So that's a big gratitude, and
the cool part too is you share that gift because you write songs like that. Some people, and this is kind of cool, I don't think a lot of people know this, like if somebody like Josh Blakesley sings a song, it's not necessarily always his song, it could be, and a lot of times you've co-written those songs with other people and stuff too.
Yes, I love to co-write. It's just such a joy for me, and I kind of like that little bit of incognito-ness though. I like sometimes not being that, you know what I mean? Just that's what is so nice about co-writing. You and I really need to co-write something.
We should really do fun. That. We've talked about that for a number of years.
Fun.
I've never been to Nashville.
What?
Ever.
Well, you're not missing much downtown. It's all bachelorette parties and drinking now. It really is. It's like nobody I know really goes down there. Like nobody out on the outskirts of town, like hardly ever goes to Nashville. So, but it's a cool place. I mean, it's fun to visit, and there's some cool tourist stuff. But come on down. Come on down. We'll we would love to have you. You could stay with me anytime and just write some songs.
That'd be awesome.
And then go see some bachelorette parties and drink some beer. That's all there is to do.
Yeah, not really my scene, but thanks.
I know. Mine either. I don't get it.
I like, when I play my gigs on the weekends, I like the restaurant gigs as early as they can be. Like, and they're like, 5 to 8 or 6 to 9.
Right, right. The grandpa hours. I love those.
Well, but like when it's like 9 to midnight, I'm like, no. Forget it.
I'm so jealous that you get to do that, because I would love to do that. Like, that's my dream to someday when I'm done with, traveling on the road so much. I would love to do. I like big band. I'd love to be a big band singer.
Oh yeah,
That'd be my dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you could do it.
I know. I'd love to. But it's really fun to watch you get to do that. So sometime when I'm up there, I'm going to join you. I'll just.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Yes, I'll sing
That'd
some
be
Pat
fun.
Benatar.
Yeah, I do one Pat Benatar song.
What do you do?
We Belong.
We belong to the night. We belong to the love. We
great song.
belong. That is
Yeah.
a great song.
Yeah,
She's awesome.
I love that song.
Yeah, me
it's a
too.
guy singing Pat Benatar, but I like the song. So,
It's okay.
well, thanks, Sarah, for being our guest today and our first female guest. And I didn't mention earlier, but I always wear a black shirt, but today I wore a blue shirt just because it would be a little different episode. So,
Oh, very nice.
that's stretching it for me, let me tell you.
That is
But
so good.
check out Sarah's music, Sarah Hart at OCP Music, or anywhere you buy digital music. You can download or get her sheet music online. Just Google her and you'll find it anywhere. Don't forget to like and subscribe the Church Files podcast on Spotify or YouTube as well. It's also on Apple Podcasts as an audio podcast only. So it's video on Spotify and YouTube. I'd like to mention that. If you have a funny church story, send it to this email, thechurchfilespodcast@gmail.com, and maybe your story will get mentioned on the air one day. And remember that humor is out there. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Craig.
You're the best.
Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for tuning in. Invite your friends to like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and our Facebook page at The Church Files Podcast. And remember, if you have a funny church story, send it to thechurchfilespodcast@gmail.com. God bless, and remember, humor is out there.